Welcome, amazing agents from across the country. Today is Thursday, August 2nd, 2018, and this is Mastermind call number 188. Couple things real quick. We had a great role play call, very, very long yesterday. It went an hour and 45 minutes. If any of you haven't had a chance, if you weren't on the call, we had a couple brave agents who kind of jumped in and volunteered to share how they're starting the conversations. And in both cases, they had great energy and enthusiasm, but they were kind of like off track as far as the best way to get a conversation. It's kind of the opposite of what Chad teaches. So Chad took each of them beginning to end through the call process, and I think we probably had a dozen other people with great role plays, great scenarios. So if you get a chance, if you haven't been, make sure you go to our subscriber resource area or our Facebook group and listen to that call. Before I turn it over to my partners, one other thing, we have a referral that I posted in Facebook. If anybody is in the Lake Ozark, Missouri area, or you know an agent in that area, we actually have a personal friend down here that just inherited some property in that area. They are ready to list it. We're not looking for a referral fee or anything. If you do know or have someone, just call Pam at 954-584-0000. And finally, I mentioned before we turn the recording on, guys, we're going to really do our best to keep these calls at an hour out of respect for your time. We want to make sure you're able to, to schedule an hour and not miss anything. So please, if you do have something you would like to share, questions, you need help, try to get in the queue early. So so we don't come to the end and not have time to get to you. Hit *6 and hit 1 right now or as soon as possible. And having said all of that, I'll turn it over to my fearless CEO, Tim. Anything you'd like to share, Tim?
I'm fearless indeed. No, it was a great month last month. Oftentimes the summer months tend to be a bit slow, and this was a great month for not only us but for our customers. We heard from a lot of people during the last month, and I know we moved a lot of people way down the line in terms of getting some stuff going for them, and we're happy to do that. We continue to increase our capabilities here. We're making some additions and changes in our call center side and a lot of other things. We're also relocating to a larger facility. Life is good and all that sort of stuff. So, it's been a great summer, and I hope we'll all finish strong and make the month of August your best August ever. And I will also tell you that Chad is dialing in as we speak, so he'll be here shortly.
Okay, good. Tom, anything you want to share with the group?
Oh, just my normal, just that, we expect and want to hear from you. And fastest way to get in touch with us is send an email to support@alltheleads.com, or if you're in your account area, under support, there's a contact us area too. So, please just, define what you're looking for. We assign those tickets to the appropriate people to get back to you on a timely basis. So please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. That's it.
Well said. I think we have about 25 employees now, and the more specific you are in what you need help with, the better chance that the right person will get back to you right away. But our average response time is really just a matter of minutes. It's generally 15 minutes or less. I think I heard Chad come on. Chad, are you with us now?
I am. Sorry, I had the yellow jacket technician pulled up right when I was getting on the call, so I apologize.
No problem. I already went around the horn. Chad, anything you want to share with the group?
Actually, yes. If anybody, considering it's this time of the year, I just learned this myself. If anybody has, you or your clients have homes with yellow jacket problems or honeybees as well, but the guy that's at my house right now is from a pharmaceutical company, and he is capturing 2 colonies of yellow jackets for free because they make anti-venom out of it. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm going to tell every realtor I know about it. So if you ever have a bee problem, just know there's guys out there that will actually capture the bees to save lives.
Very interesting. All right, thank you. And I know you just finished your latest mastery course, and so another one will be coming up next month. Generally it's the third week of the month, but I'm sure when you have the next class scheduled, you'll let everyone know. Anything you want to summarize from the last course, Chad, or anything you want to talk about as far as training or mastery?
So I haven't set the dates for Mastery just yet. It's very likely to be this upcoming week. You'll see an email, and I'll announce it to everybody. But nothing. And we did have the role play call yesterday. So for anyone who didn't make it to the role play call, we do those on the first Monday of every month, the first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. And those are archived both in the subscriber portal under coaching and training conference calls, and also in our Facebook group, All the Leads Mastermind. We post those there. So if you weren't on the call yesterday, be sure to take a listen. It was an interesting call.
Yeah, it really was. Really wide variety of topics, and a couple people who were brave enough to volunteer and be the agent, and you gave them some really good suggestions. So, all right, well, let's get to our callers. We only have 2 people in the queue. I said we were going to limit it to an hour, but we got room for a lot more than 2. Please, guys, nothing is out of bounds here. This call is for you. Please participate. Hit *6 and hit 1. And we're going to go ahead and go to the first caller, phone number ending in 1329. You're up first.
Thanks. Hey, Chad. I had a question. I am brand new to this. We're about to send out our first letter, and I noticed that there's 2 different types of letters, basically, in the example. One that sort of leads with the whole idea, I'm a real estate agent, and then one that is more, that's tucked inside of the total package of what the probate service would provide. I was just wondering if you could sort of speak to experience as far as how your response rates are with those 2 different types of letters when you're doing your initial direct mail campaign.
Yeah, so it's really market specific, and you really don't know until you get started up. The less direct letters that take the more like the broader approach, those were kind of the innovation after we started seeing more competition in the space and really competitive markets that can sometimes, if they're getting 30 postcards from We Buy Houses and realtors that have a pretty one-sided offer and all they want to talk about is the house, they don't really focus on the person's needs, then those letters can be really effective because they feel like, it differentiates you.
Okay.
The ones, kind of the ones that disclose, hey, I'm a realtor and I have cash buyers, and you kind of disclose all that up front, those are the original letters that we got started with, and I've been able to achieve 6% conversion rates using those. However, as over the last 4 years, I've coached people in all different size businesses and all different markets. Sometimes you do need the less direct approach to kind of help them. And the common theme of what we teach is focus on people and situation, and then segue into real estate where you can monetize that. And that's kind of the idea behind those letters. So I would say that, for each of us, you're not going to see a letter there that hasn't been proven, but never be afraid to test things in your own market. That's what marketing is all about, right?
Right. Yeah, we're in Portland out here, so it's been kind of a nuclear hot market for a while, and it's kind of a viper pit with a lot of real estate people. So I was kind of leaning towards the less direct one just to see. That was going to be my first try, at least, with the idea.
So in a market like that, and knowing Portland, and I think that this kind of fits the core values of the city, there's a letter that I wrote called The Social Entrepreneur. Have you seen that one?
I might not have looked at that one yet.
So that one is, take a look at that one. That's one of the less direct, it's a less direct approach, more of a community, like this is a community service kind of letter. And it's a 2-sided letter. I'm pretty sure it's in there. I think it's called The Social Entrepreneur or something along those lines. But I wrote that one for Colorado Springs. And there's some similarities, between the cities. But I think that letter might serve you well in Portland.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
Yep.
All right. Anything else we can help you with?
I think that'll do it for today for me.
Awesome. Well, we have 4 more in the queue, guys. Good job stepping up and getting in there early. Again, we have room for more. Just hit *6 and hit 1. Next up is phone number ending in 8224. You're up next.
Hey, this is Peter. I've got two questions all about the calls out. So had letters mailed out last week, and had some personal things go on that I've not been able to make my calls, probably really until today. I got to do it this afternoon. So the real question is, if you miss that first week and it extends into the second week, what's the likelihood of, that of anything churning out, or is that just kind of that I put myself into a hole with that?
You're totally screwed, man. You only have like 106 weeks left.
Okay.
So a lot of people, we get conditioned to think leads are hot potatoes, right? It's like you got to deal with this right now. Probate's a lot different than that. So there are so many variables in the situation and so many emotions that everyone's going to move at their own pace, and those are very differing paces. So the reason we recommend you spread your campaign out over a minimum of 90 days is that. So ideally, I'd like you to spread your campaign out over 2 years, because both in my own personal team and in our ISA center, I've seen a lot of production, a lot of listings, and even acquisitions come out of lists that were 12 to 24 months old. So don't. I guess I'll tell you, you have my permission to get rid of that mindset. You haven't done anything wrong. Like, all you need to do is just go forward, and you're going to get as much business as you, well, potentially. There are people, we teach you to market immediately, because there are families that want to dump the assets like yesterday, and the early bird gets the worm there. But it's more of, it's a marathon more than a sprint. So if you hang in there and keep in touch, the fortune is in the follow-up. And it's more about being there when they're ready than it is about the message or the exact copy or, what kind of, the envelope's important. But a lot of people get wrapped up in what their letters say, or, which letters they're using, or should I use 1, 2, 3 or number 1 3 times. It's more important about the frequency and being there when they're ready. So you're not at a disadvantage, and even a lot of our folks sign up and they're so eager to get started, they'll purchase historical files. So they'll go back 3-4 months, and we've had dozens and dozens of people that will, on their very first letter to a 3 or 4 month old, like 3 or 4 months worth of old list, they'll come back with multiple listings, and they're just blown away. They're like, because they bought it at a discounted rate and thought they had discounted expectations. So don't feel like you're behind the 8 ball. You're certainly not. Just move forward.
Cool. Helpful. The second question is, so I'm in a market where I don't have access to use your ISAs. New to this strategy and calling, how do I compete best against your ISAs?
The best thing I can do for you is, you watched Probate Fast Track, right? The initial training.
Yeah.
Okay. So in there was a sheet on session 3, and it was it's an Excel format. It's called the Probate Seller Interview Sheet. That's your framework for your conversation. Now, it's your job to build the language on that framework. So what I would suggest is go to the role play archive, and you now have 33 hours of role play archive content. That's the single best tool I can give you, because not only do you get to hear the language that we use. Like, for example, yesterday we went an hour and 20 minutes, and I try to, and honestly, I've gotten better at it over the course of the last couple of years, because I've realized how to become a better trainer. So we try to not only say things, we try to go back and explain why we said them and why we chose the order that we chose. So the Probate Seller Interview sheet it's a very deliberate order, and I've spent quite a bit of time getting that in the right order, so the conversation flows and you get all the information you need to provide options. So what I would suggest, download the probate seller interview sheet, print it off, and have it in front of you as you're listening to the role play calls. And you'll hear my language, Jim's language, some of our other customers. Yesterday we had 2 people step up and ask us to critique their language. So they took the lead on a public call, which I commend them for that. So that would be the best thing, I think, for you to really build your confidence and get your language where you're comfortable with it.
Thank you.
All right, we have 4 more in the queue, guys. Great participation. Next up is phone number ending in 9091. You're up next.
Hey, Jim. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Before you get started on that, the previous caller made a point that he didn't have access to our ISAs, and I think it's important to let people know that the only reason that's the case, our ISAs work in every county and work for all of our customers, but we limit the ISA calls to 1 customer per market because there's no way to do any differentiation for us. A call is a call, so they follow the same program each time, and we do limit that to 1 subscriber per market, and that's the reason why the previous caller didn't have access to our ISAs. It wasn't because we don't use it in certain marketplaces.
Yeah, no, great point. Yeah, we didn't feel it would be ethical to be calling, for two or more people in the same market, with the same callers. So, but I would also say that doesn't mean, the ISAs are great, but there's nothing like calling yourself. So I don't assume you can't compete against them. They're
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So get on the phone, and believe me, you will get your share if you're diligent in making the phone calls. All right, good point. Good point. And 9091, you are unmuted and ready to go.
Okay, thank you. So I'm still new to the program, and the last caller kind of, you guys answered partially my question, but let's just say, what is the best way to really, truly spend your marketing dollars for this? I mean, if you're getting started, I know you're getting the leads and you've got, the website, and if you're using the ISA calls, but let's say if you want to, just Chad submit something about just, stick with it, spread your probate campaign over the 2 years, and just kind of stick with it because eventually something will happen. I'm in a competitive market. I'm really starting to find out, but, and I realize it is a marathon versus a sprint, and it's just building that relationship. But I guess that's my first question. And then the second question is when a PR does call you back and says, hey, there is no real estate or assets, please take me off your list. I don't want to sound like a realtor and say, hey, do you have any other real estate? So I want to be able to have a nice segue. Do I come in with a probate USP? Those are my 2 questions. Thanks.
So I'll answer number 2 first. So when anyone says we don't have real estate, it's, well, who else do you know that I could help with their real estate needs? I'm just kidding.
Okay.
you just rolled your eyes at me, didn't you? So with the ones that don't have real estate, we know certain things about them, right? So we know that they're in a super stressful situation. Chances are it's the first or second, possibly the only time they'll ever do this in their life. And statistically, they're going to inherit just around $177,000 from the estate. Now, there's probably going to be 2 to 3 heirs in most cases, but they're going to have a windfall of cash, and they already have problems. We all do. The difference is some of their problems because they're a personal representative. So at the very least, you can get them over to your financial advisor and your family law attorney to help make sure they never have to go through this again in future generations. So probate costs between 4 and 7% for most families of the total estate value. So why the heck should anyone have to do that and deal with the hassle? You can spend less money setting up a living trust and then not have to put up with probate at all. So even if they say they've got it covered or there is no real estate, if you can just focus on what's bothering them, what's tough for them, and bring people in from your team, and, financial advisor, family law attorney, even a CPA, because if they're inheriting assets, wouldn't it be nice if some professional offered them a free service of reviewing the transfer of assets to make sure that the stock portfolio was transferred not to create a taxable event, and is set up and is invested to meet their long-term goals of paying for junior's college fund or something like that. So just always be looking for that next layer of value. And what's really interesting about that is when you help people at that level, when they do have a real estate need, you don't even have to say it. You don't have to do what everyone else does, because when you provide that level of service, you're the only damn realtor in the world. Like, they will come to you first. Roger Lisi, he may or may not be on this call, but he does an incredibly good job of this. Anyone who will speak to him becomes part of his sphere of influence. So when he speaks to an executor, whether or not they have real estate or not, or he helps them or not, they become part of his sphere of influence, and he tries to provide value to them, real estate-related value, from that point on. And he's in a small market compared to most of us, and he's one of our most successful customers. He has a consistent, steady flow of business because he's consistently done the right thing, and he's been with us for, maybe 3 years now. But over time, you'll start to see a lot of income from that, from just taking that extra 30 seconds to help those folks.
And just to add to that, Chad, I don't think you mentioned this, that remember, like Chad said, these people inherited almost $200,000. Decent percentage of them may want to list their home and buy a nicer one. They might want to buy investment property. Chad has said before, maybe they want to be a hard money lender for your investors. There are direct real estate ways that you can help them, but that conversation generally comes from just having an overall approach of how can I help you, and then you make it into those conversations and find out, yeah, they do want to buy a couple investment properties, or they do want to upgrade the home they're living in. So don't assume that there isn't. We've had so many subscribers tell us stories like that where they did do one or more real estate deals with somebody, even though there wasn't real estate. And Roger's a good example, even though there wasn't real estate in the estate. And Chad, you had something else you were going to add?
Remind me of the first part of the question. I've already forgot.
Sorry.
What's the best way to really spend your marketing dollars every month?
Oh, for sure. Those are banner ads. Just run banner ads. That's the highest return. Or billboards is probably a better return.
Okay. Do that, right?
So let me get to the root of your question. Are we talking about a finite budget or just the best value for your money?
Yeah, the finite budget and maybe, I guess, combined, what you just said, combined. I mean. Okay,
so what we believe to be the best value for your money is a combination of direct mail and phone calls. Now, there's 97 other ways that you can market to people, but that's what we believe and what we see daily proof of being the most value, like the best value in marketing. You can do Facebook marketing, you can do pay-per-click, you can, all kinds of different stuff. But the best bang for your buck is send out letters, and we've squeezed the cost as low as we possibly can for small batch mailers. So, you're never going to find it cheaper than us with that specific mail piece. So leverage our service to save yourself time and pay for the mail. And then if you can, make your own phone calls to keep your costs down and your conversion up. And then build your referral network with probate attorneys, nursing home employees, senior moving companies, estate sale companies, people that all have contact with folks in this life transition stage. They need to fully understand your business model and be fully bought into your team. And because you're sending them referrals, they need to be reciprocating. So that's one of those no cost, low cost things that you can do that can literally make a difference in millions and millions of dollars at the end of your career. We have one gentleman in San Diego, off of a single conversation at a dinner party, he has closed 100 probate transactions because one attorney saw that he had a good heart and he said, you know what, I need somebody like you to work with my clients. So I would say do what we teach. Send the mail, follow with a phone call, and get your butt out there to meet the attorneys face to face. Because those three things combined, you can forget about all the other marketing options out there. You won't find a better return.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much. Does that help?
Yes, very much so. Because I'm in a really competitive market, I'm finding out. But, that's not going to stop me. I still am going to just move forward, but it is. It's just building that network and the referral network, and to show that my value.
100%. And please come back and keep us posted as you start to get results.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Next up, we have our brave soul Roxanne, who stepped up on our mastermind, on our role play call yesterday. How you doing, Roxanne?
I'm doing awesome, and thank you, Chad, for role playing with me yesterday, and because I made calls this morning and they went so much better. Thank you so much.
All right, that's what we like to hear.
So some of them still didn't have real estate, but that was fine. But I felt like I connected with people, and they're keeping my pen and keeping my information in front of them. So that worked out. And I need to take the mastery class, I decided. So I need to do that. And what does it mean? Like I looked up one person's address today. It was like the person's name and et al. Does that mean that it's in the estate already, or what does that mean?
That means the rest of the group, basically, and bad translation. Et al. Is one of those terms. It's a Latin term that's used in law. So it just, I think it means and others is the direct translation of it. So that's what it probably means in this case is that there's an executor, but they're also co-executors. So because the parent didn't want to play favorites, they said Billy is the executor, Jay and Sue are the co-executors. So I want them to make decisions as a group. That's probably the situation.
Okay, because I didn't get that person I left a voicemail for and didn't get a hold of, and it's a duplex that actually one of my customers would like. So I'm trying to, I will keep calling them and see if we can do, but that's what I thought it meant, but I wasn't for sure. So, all right. Yeah, no, it's going a ton better today. Thank you for your help. You guys are great.
Yeah. Thank you so much thanks for being brave and stepping up yesterday. I know a lot. It was courageous, and I know a lot of people learned a lot from it. So thanks a lot, Roxanne. All right, we have 3 more in the queue. Next up is phone number ending in 0100. You're up next.
Hello, guys. Thanks for letting me get involved here. My name is Ty. I'm in Illinois, DuPage County. And I kind of did an exchange with Chad last week on your Facebook page. I'll be brief with my story. It's kind of more seeing results, but I took your mastery class this month, a couple weeks ago, I think it was. And at the end of the second day, I got a phone call because I had inquired about, hooking up with you guys, but the territory was full as far as the number of people you could have in this area. And apparently a spot opened, so I went ahead and signed up. But I'm kind of an antsy person, so I had gone to another source, got a list of probates going back, I don't know, probably March, something of that nature. And then kind of being a resourceful person, was able to discover a couple of Chad's letters that are out there on the Facebook, made some mailings, started making some phone calls. And then I would listen in on these calls just to kind of help with, how do you present yourself? What do you say? This, that, and the other thing. And I don't have my first list from you guys. That should be coming, I guess, towards the latter part of this month. But lo and behold, making, I think my list was about 100 names, making about 70 or 80 calls. I got a guy on the phone from Arkansas, and he's like, hey, I do remember the letter. I've been meaning to call you. And then just started dumping everything on me as to what was going on. I went and saw his brother over at the property last night to take a look at the property because the probate attorney said, hey, we need to know how much this house is worth. And, so starting to see some traction with it. So I guess if you're just resourceful and you just, just say the heck with it and pick up the phone and start making phone calls, at least you're in the game. If you don't do anything, you're never in the game.
Funny how the same thing has always worked in real estate, hasn't it? pick up the phone and be a person. Like people want to hear from people. So I'll say this: what you just, and thank you for sharing the story. I mean, what you just shared is a very common experience with probate. So typically, the folks who need help will respond to you, and then they will, as soon as they kind of confirm that you're who they thought they were and that you do have good intentions, they will just unload the story on you. And it's really easy to know what to do from there because you just listen. And they'll draw you a roadmap of everything you need to say and do over the next 6 weeks. They'll tell you exactly how to be the best realtor they've ever met. So get used to that because they're all pretty much this easy.
And as far as the time period is concerned, this recent list that I did access wasn't the first one. I had accessed a list a year ago, or was it a year and a half ago, something like that, and then put out a postcard through another service. And ironically, after probably a year, I got a phone call from these ladies. It started as a probate, and it turned into a short sale. And went to one of my investors, made an offer. So how long these things sit out there and percolate is very true, because I've gotten phone calls where, the probate has been a year, 2 years old, and the family is like, well, we don't want to pay, more to the court or the attorney. We'd really like to unload the property. And then you get that phone call, just boom, out of left field. So tenacity and persistency is what I found.
That's where we make the money. Yeah, so thanks for sharing, Ty.
Yeah, well said, Ty. Thank you. I can't agree enough. Most months we have anywhere from 10 to 20 agents that were with us a month or two and quit, and then months later they start to get traction from their original campaign and they come back and stick with it. This probate deletes season very well, and there is very much a cumulative effect. So you will find that my longest out I think was 2 years, and I think Chad had one that was even longer. And the one that I had that was 2 years out was $3 million. The family squabbled for a year and a half before the court finally put somebody in charge, and boy, by that time they were ready to go. So good example, great story, and please, Ty, keep coming back and sharing your wins with us as you get more.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. We have 2 more in the queue. Room for more. Just hit *6 and hit 1. Next up is phone number ending in 2583. You're up next. 2583. Can you hear us? Area code 917. Unmute yourself, or I guess we're going to have to move on. 2583, hit *6 and hit 1 again, and I'm going to go on to the next person for now. Next up is phone number ending in 6248. You're up next.
Good morning. This is Joyce, and I have 2 questions, please. Based
Sure.
on your suggestions, Chad, we wanted to do the probate attorney calls, and not calls, but visits. So I had a trifold made up, sort of based on some of the examples that are on the Facebook page and others of friends I have, and they turned out really well. And I'm going to take those to the probate attorneys and leave them with them. And I looked at them and I thought, well, maybe that would be a good thing to send with the letter. So I wanted to ask, one, if that's a good thing to send with the letter, because it really outlines, the team and all the services. And then you talk about the importance of the envelope. Is it bad to put it in a number 10 white envelope? And your return address.
I'll answer those in order. So the brochure with a letter is a good idea, and a lot of folks are doing that. More and more folks are doing it. And if you haven't seen the newest version of our brochure, Alyssa posted it on our Facebook page, I think last week. It has the hub, the kind of, you always hear me talk about the analogy of us being the hub and the wheel, and our team being the spokes. Alyssa and I designed a graphic, and she designed the that into our trifold. So you want to take a look at that one. But yes, a lot more people are sending them in their letters. We can even send it with one of the tear tabs on it, where we just send the brochure as the mail piece, so you can actually get your cost lower. I think it's more similar to the cost of a postcard campaign. But anyway, we can, like, a lot of folks do that. I haven't personally done it, so I can't really speak to I didn't ever have a brochure that has had the letters. But yes, especially if they're visual people, the brochure can very quickly, you typically have about 8 seconds of a human's attention, and the first 4 are really crucial. So if whatever you can do to increase the message in the first 4 seconds is going to help you out. So, I would talk to Alyssa about your options with, including it in the letter versus putting it as maybe step 2 in your sequence. So maybe you do letter 1, flyer 1, letter 2, letter 3, or maybe you just weave it into your sequence somewhere and send it as a standalone piece. But Alyssa can kind of walk you through the options and the cost of everything and help you fit it into your campaign.
What about the envelope, Chad, that I put
So
in?
the envelope, and this is based on a whole lot of money spent in testing across many different lists for me. Number 10 envelopes, I barely got any response when I would send campaigns, and even when I changed the colors, it didn't seem to make a huge difference. When I use greeting card envelopes with a hand address and a live first-class stamp, I tend to get between a 1% to 2% response rate on inbound calls. But what's really noticeable is on my outbound calls, more people open the letters, keep the letters, and because if you get a greeting card, and I didn't use a return address because I tracked my first 18,000 pieces of mail, and I had 6 returns out of 18,000, and that was before we were doing address verification. So you have almost 100% deliverability, and in my experience with the greeting card envelope, you have pretty much 100% open rates. So I got to the point where I lost enough money trying new things with number 10 envelopes that I just went back to a greeting card envelope, and that's where I stuck. And that will change. Someday we'll have to do something different, but so far they're still incredibly effective. And I hear stories at least weekly, some more often daily, from people who tell us success stories that are saying, they said they got 15 or 50 postcards, but our letter really stood out. And so many people will take the listing and they get to the appointment, and there's, a whole stack of mail there that hasn't been opened, but they immediately opened theirs and made the phone call. That's why they got the listing. So for me, it's pretty hard to convince me that there's anything better than the greeting card envelope.
Does that mean that I should fold the trifold so that it fits in a greeting card envelope?
I don't know. Tim, what do you suggest on that? I'm not sure what we've done for folks.
Yeah, I mean, the trifold can do that. The only comment I'd make, and this is about the number 10 as well, the one thing that folks have had some good success with on the trifold is doing the normal addressing, but also on the bottom left, adding just one line that says regarding the estate of and the decedent's name, and that tends to get action pretty quickly as well. So that's something that we found that has begun to get some work. The greeting card envelopes definitely still get more opens than the number 10s do across the board, but adding that regarding the estate of does seem to get more opens. But you got to be careful with your message then inside that you're not, they don't accuse you of, in essence, false advertising on the outside. And what I mean by that is you still have to make sure that your letter speaks very, very kindly of the fact that they're dealing with issues and you're there to help and all of that. You got to get to the point pretty quickly if you do that. As far as folding the trifold and putting it in a greeting card envelope, greeting card envelopes are wide enough that a folded trifold goes into 3 folds. It's the same width as an 8.5 by 11, They're right at 9 inches wide, the greeting card size envelopes. So it'll go in there just fine.
Great. And just my final question would be, I've gone online to look up the probate process for my county, and I have a probate timeline, and I have an executor's duty list. But I'm wondering if there is a narrative somewhere that I can learn a little bit more so that I don't feel so uninformed on the actual probate process.
So, Joyce, you have Session 3 of Probate Mastery. We went through a timeline.
Right.
And you may go, that's in Session 1, actually. So we go through a timeline and the documents they have to gather, and it kind of gives you a general timeline for that. That's all we really have prepared and written right now as far as training goes. I'm working on a piece that basically lays out step by step every single responsibility of every party in the process, and we're going to color code it. You know, the PR has one color, the attorney has another, the probate clerk has another, and I just haven't gotten it done yet. So that's what I'm working toward. If you would want to try to do that in your market, producing the piece is going to teach you everything you need to know. The best way to get comfortable, and most people don't want to hear this, but the best way to get comfortable is go right to the source. Pick up the phone today. I mean, make a commitment by 2:15. You're going to be on the phone with your local probate clerk, and I'll bet you within 15 minutes you'll be out of questions. Like I've done this with several clients who were apprehensive. But if you just pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, I've built an entire team of people here locally, and I just want to make sure I know everything I can about our probate process. Can you walk me through this and answer a few questions? And every time I've ever done this, they've engaged and been really helpful. So you can probably get it direct from the source in your county, and they'll walk you through, from the first day they meet someone from the family until they become the administrator, all the way through closing the probate. And you'll learn a ton, but it'll also help you produce a really awesome marketing piece.
That's
that
a
you
great
can
idea.
use to hand out to your customers. So one of the most common objections you'll hear is, our attorney has it handled. And if you include that checklist in your first letter, and you get that objection, you go, oh, okay, so if you open my letter, you must not have opened my letter, because you'll see that everything in black is your responsibility and everything in red is the attorney's responsibility, or whatever the color system is. But it's the idea is to turn that checklist into a visual tool that kind of shows them what they're staring down the barrel of. Because a lot of folks early in the process, they're overly confident, and then they get in neck deep and realize, holy crap, we need help. And that's where the come list me calls come from. It's not a bad thing for us, but if they would let you get involved earlier in the process, they would never get to that point of motivation or desperation. So that's the idea. You could kind of kill two birds with one stone here. You can produce that piece for your own campaigns, but also it's going to force you to learn every single step of the process, because you're going to put something in writing, right?
Perfect. Thank you so very much.
Yep.
Perfect. Excellent. We have two more in the queue, and that'll probably take us pretty close to the top of the hour. Next up is phone number ending in 5284. You're up next.
Hi, this is Linda. I have a question about a call that I was on today, and I just wanted some input to see how others would handle it. I was talking to a gentleman, and he had everything handled, and he was definitely going to sell his home. And he does have a real estate agent, and he's definitely working with his agent. But he said, since I work with investors, he would be interested in an offer before he puts it on the market. The house is worth $500,000, and he would sell it for $440,000 if I had an investor. And how would you handle that?
Has he signed the listing agreement with the other agent?
No, he has not.
Okay. The first thing I would have done is ask him to meet with that agent and then ask him to meet with me before he signs anything. And you can almost always get them to commit to that, because what I would want to do is really understand. Chances are he doesn't have everything handled. He could use some help in one or more areas, and he might not realize that yet. But through good questions, you can uncover that and show him things that he might. So I would first try to get face to face and at least have the option of being the listing agent. So and he's already shown you his cards. So he's putting you in a position to work against him already. So I would turn it in such a way of, well, Mr. Smith, if I were representing you, I would have a fiduciary responsibility. And if I'm not, then I don't, and you've already shown me your card. So let's go ahead and meet, and let's make sure you're not leaving money on the table. Find some reason to get in front of him. If he's just not having it, if he's committed to a real estate agent and you feel like you're, if it doesn't feel ethically right to you, then just back off and use the inside information to get a great deal for your investors. So, and that brings me to my first question. Do you have a list of investors you can trust?
No, I don't. I just joined the Real Estate Investors Club, and I'm getting to know people. So, but as far as being, I've just met a few people. So I don't really have a list of people that I can, I'd be cold calling them too, practically.
Still there, Chad?
I think Chad may have dropped off. He may have had he's typing something now.
We lost Chad. I'm sure he'll be calling back in.
He's calling back in.
Yeah. While we wait for him, if you just joined a real estate investors group, call the president of the group and just say, "Hey, I got a good deal. I'm looking to, either partner on, or you could charge the investor a commission." I guarantee you, the leader of the group will know somebody who'd be interested in something like that. Chad, are you back?
I'd also be real careful though. If the guy said he'd take that specific amount of money, you kind of have to. And Chad said the right thing. You need to actually sit down face to face with him before you make that offer to, the folks in a real estate club. You need to make sure that legitimately you have the ability to convey that offer and it will get done. Because if he's a day from signing the agreement with the agent, he signs it, you go to the investors club, and you have no deal because he's still working with the real estate agent. So you got to be real careful with what you're doing. Make sure you've got some ability to do that, and that his contract with the agent would allow him to accept investor offers on his own if that's what he wants to go do as well.
Okay.
How much do you think the home is worth? Have you done the analysis on it?
I looked at it real quick, and it's definitely worth $500. He said he's going to have some. It's a beautiful home, and he paid about $440 for it 4 years ago. So I think that it's worth about $500. And
is it free and clear?
Is it free and clear? Let me look. No, it's not free and clear.
Okay. Because that would make a really good house for creative financing. Where I was going with that, a lot of business owners can't necessarily qualify for home loans, but they have a lot of cash.
Mm-hmm.
A lease with option to purchase would work, even though there is a loan on it. If you understand that, or if I know somebody that can help you with it. A cleaner scenario would be a contract for deed or owner financing, where you could sell the home for $500 and find a buyer that would be willing to pay a premium with a heavy down payment. Maybe that would work for him if money. It depends on if money or time is more important to him. But it sounds like he's probably not hard up for money if he's willing to give up equity in a house like that. He just doesn't want the hassle. But you could probably kick the other realtor's butt by bringing something creative to the table like that to open the conversation and just show that you're a different class of real estate agent, that you're actually have already considered all of his options and his best interest, even though he told you he had an agent. That was where my mind was going with it. If you do want to get in there and impress him as an agent before you try to go sell it, to one of your investors.
So all this investing, like the deed for sale and all I am just learning all this, even though I've been in real estate for years. I'm just one of those typical real estate agents. And how do I get like the crash course in all of this? Creative.
Oh man, for me, it took a whole cellar full of red wine and late nights. Just stay up and read. So one of the best resources in the world for this kind of thing is there's a forum called biggerpockets.com.
Okay.
And it's predominantly real estate investors, but it is the largest aggregation of generous people in the real estate that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of conversation threads about, you if you want to learn about short sales, subject to financing, lease with option to purchase, you name it, it's being discussed in there. Vacation rental, things like so. Any way that there is to make money is being discussed in that group, and there's some very thorough mentors in there that they don't really gain anything from it. They just enjoy spending their time helping others that are coming up in the business. So that would be the single best resource I know of if you just want to burn through some time. There's obviously volumes and volumes of books out there, but Bigger Pockets, the really neat thing about forums like that is, you might read a book on creative financing that was published in 2006 before Dodd-Frank was ever a law, and it may be obsolete. You may be learning bad habits because Dodd-Frank changed the face of that. So Bigger Pockets is everything's time and date stamped, and it's a little more up to date. So that's probably the best resource I could point you to as a starting point. And It's also a good place to meet investors that are in your market. So you'll go in. They've greatly improved the platform. So now they're treating it less like a forum and more like a social media platform. It's almost like it's getting close to being like a LinkedIn for real estate investors now. So you'll have you name your home market and what strategies you're interested in or you're using, and then upload a photo, and it's more of a socially interactive site now than just the old school web forum that it used to be.
Okay.
Hey, Lynn, if you need more, we have two more in the queue, and we're coming up on the hour, but if you need more help, see if you can get in front of that guy. Do your best to schedule an appointment. Assure him that you do have access to investors. Try to get in front of him. If you need more help, just email us, support@alltheleads.com. And we're there for you, if you do schedule an appointment and you need more help. Fair enough?
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Two more in the queue, guys. We're going to cut it. I'm going to close the queue. So, Jeffrey, you're last up today. Next up is phone number ending in 5550. You're up next.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Can hear you great. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, good. Hi. Yeah, I was going to ask a question, of Chad. I know Chad has talked about, going out to see attorneys in person. I went out this week to see an attorney, and I had a good response. But when I was going to other places, to see some attorneys, I think my question was, I just felt, I don't know, maybe feeling intimidated, a sense of trepidation. And I was just wondering how, kind of like, Chad, maybe when you used to go out to do this, how you were able to handle this, how you felt and how you were able to break through to these attorneys, to be able to meet them in person.
So this is, I don't have much experience with probate attorneys because it's not common in my marketplace. The experience I do have with probate attorneys has been coaching other people who have attorneys to go meet with. I don't really have that opportunity in my market.
Okay.
But I have been intimidated. I have self-intimidated myself in many other ways. And I told a story yesterday on the role play call. You know, I came from law enforcement into high-end resort real estate. And I grew up, how do I put this? I grew up not rich. And all of a sudden I was hanging out with really wealthy people in a resort atmosphere trying to sell them, you know, a second or third or fourth home. So I was intimidated. Like my little voice in my head that said, you know, you're just a poor farm boy and you're up here hanging out with the rich cats from D.C. They're going to know you're full of it, right? And all of that was total bullshit. And as soon as I got a handle on it, I became the top salesperson on the mountain. And for me, I think it's just an affirmation. You've got to look inside, be introspective, and say, am I doing the right things for the right reasons? And is this person better knowing me than not knowing me? And if the answer is no, then go find another career. But I think you're going to find the answer is yes, and that'll energize you to move forward. And man, I mean, I don't know your personality. Some people, it will help to look in the mirror and say that, literally ask yourself the question. Others, you just kind of center your breathing, like focus on 5 deep breaths and then ask yourself those questions and kind of just clear your mind out. But I think it's all that little voice in your head. What we find, the attorneys in the probate space, attorneys are incredibly open to meeting folks that are taught off of, you know, that are learning from what we teach. And we've seen it across the country in rural farm markets all the way to New York City. Like I just got off the phone with, and she's probably on this call, Margie is in Manhattan. She's been there her whole life, but has never really met with a probate attorney. And she sat down for the first time with a probate attorney yesterday for an hour and a half. And he, you know, his time is probably worth $200 to $300 an hour or more. But he was impressed with Margie, so he sat down and took over a billable hour out of his day to learn more about what she's offering to the community. And that's the common reception. That's what you're going to find. So it'll become easier over time. Like you'll build more and more confidence because you'll realize, holy crap, these guys really do need what I'm offering. And then you'll be proud of stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that real quick, too. Remember, you may be going in with the attitude intimidated because you don't know a lot about probate, but you're not really supposed to. You're dealing with someone who the attorney is an expert at probate law. You're not supposed to know a lot about it, but I guarantee you probably know more about how to sell a property in real estate than he does. Another thing I found with attorneys, flatter them, you know, tell them attorneys love to talk, you know, like, boy, I noticed in the probate listings every month, you seem to do more probates or, you know, darn near more than anybody else in the market. You know, how'd you get so successful at probate? You know, let him talk. Let him talk. Wait, flatter him a little bit. Let him do the talking, and you're going to have a best friend all the time, all of a sudden, because you know they don't get a lot of compliments. That works very well. All right, sir. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. And just one more question, right? You know, how do you see the probate market going forward?
You're in the very beginning. So we had almost 80 million births during the baby boom of 46 to 64. And the first part of that generation started to pass away in 1999. And they'll be with us through about 2045 to 2050 is when we'll lose the last ones. So we have seen in the 4 years we've been doing this, I have noticed like we're seeing an incremental climb in the number of probates in every market. And it's just simple math. Like we have a certain amount of time here, and that generation is getting closer to the end of that amount of time. So you're going to see it on an exponential curve. It'll increase for the next 40 years or so, and then it will kind of settle out. There'll be a bit of a gap, and there'll be quite a gap until the millennials come along. But so this is, this is one of the least competitive spaces in real estate still, even though we're talking about and seeing more competition every day. If you get your flag in the sand now, you can own this for the rest of your career. Like, you know the top REO agent in your market and the guy that's getting all the FSBOs and the person that gets all the expireds. Like, they did something unique. They put their flag in the sand, and hardly anyone can compete with them or take market share from them. Probate's no different. Like, if you get clear on your service and you do what we teach, as long as you're marketing and building a referral network so the community understands what you do and you don't have to start over every month, marketing to the PRs, then this can be something that you can retire off of this one single source of business easily.
Right. Thank you.
All right,
so
sir.
much, man. That was very helpful.
Thank you very much, guys. No, we really appreciate it. We're going to run just a little bit over. We have one more person. Last up in the queue today is phone number ending in 2583. You're up last. Can you hear us? Jeffrey, you there?
Hello. Hey guys, how are you?
You don't sound like Jeffrey.
No.
Hi.
Yeah, that's my other half.
That's what I figured.
So, I've been doing this for 4 months. I know it works because before that I was actually going to the courthouse and I did get a sale. I found someone, by using some of the language. This is before I was a subscriber, but just, watching from the outside. And and I got, a sale and I closed it and it was great. But so, and now I just thought, this would be better because I don't have to sit all day in the courthouse, and I've been calling people. It's been 4 months, and I just get on the phone right away. So, sometimes I'll have these long conversations with people, like I did a few weeks ago, and then, it's all about, like, following up, and I followed up today, and first I looked online, and I saw that it was listed today, and I had this, like, long conversation with him a few days ago, so that was disappointing. The competition is fierce, and it's just about, my question really, I've spoken to Chad a few times. It's just, how do you, when you speak to them, there's always like they have to wait and this and that, and it's, there's something, sometimes they're fighting, and so it's really, you have to keep calling them, but not be annoying. But is there any way to like seal the deal upon the first time you have this conversation with them so that someone doesn't come in like right after you and, they close it? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like it's just very hard to get something on the first contact. It's always a lot. You always have to keep going.
Okay, go ahead, Chad.
No, say whatever you need to.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to ask her. I didn't want to disrespect her, but we're overtime, and I wanted to let you kind of answer the question. And if you can't answer it quickly, maybe we could schedule something offline. But go ahead, Chad.
No,
you're up.
This is good. So the key here is to always give them a reason to meet face to face with you, regardless of what stage they're in. There's one exception. I try to set an appointment on every phone call, with one exception. If they are just emotionally cut to the bone and they're just not ready to deal with this, and you can sense that. You're a female. You're certainly going to be better at it than me. The female intuition amazes me. So you're going to know, but I'll say this, 99% of it, don't be overly sensitive, because 99% of the time they're standing in their own way because they're scared. And that's why I try to get everybody to understand the probate process and understand the stress that these folks are going through, because that'll help you get in the right mindset and know when you can identify probate quicksand. And that's something I made up because it just seemed like a good analogy. But a lot of people will get in this situation where they don't do anything, and the longer they procrastinate, the deeper they get. And to me, quicksand was the proper analogy. And 99% of the time, I will grab them by the hand and pull their ass out of the quicksand and say, listen, you need to deal with this, and I'm going to do all the work. So come on, let's go. And in a much different way, obviously not that language, but that's where I see most people let off the gas at even the hint of an objection and say, okay, well, listen, I'll call you back in a week. Well, you call, and it's the exact same story you just told. When you call back, you're going to be talking to someone else's client, because they need help. Their ego won't let them tell you the absolute truth, that they're scared to death and don't know where to start, and they will take help from whoever will give it to them. They're going to give you some false objections because you're getting them into, embarrassing territory. Maybe the house is just full of just trash, and like that's one that's really common. I see people lose listings because they don't go to the house. They accept the objection of, well, let us get the house cleaned out first. It's just a total disaster. Well, that gives a 2-week window for someone who's got better leadership skills to jump in and say, well, hey, why don't you have me clean the house out? And then you don't have the problem. So you've got to have a good understanding of the probate process and the mindset of the person and what they're going through, and then you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see, oh, I can do this here. Like, for example, if they're on the phone and they're like, oh, we just don't know where to start, there's stuff in the house and my brothers and sisters are out of town, well, boom, you've got you can address 2 challenges in that one sentence. Brothers and sisters are out of town. I can set up a conference call or a screen share. We can go ahead and meet. The personal property is the easiest and best way to get your foot in the door because, well, listen, Mr. Smith, the sooner we get involved, the more of this work we can do. So would you rather do the work all on your own and meet me in 2 weeks to find out I could have done it for you? Or would you rather me just meet up and show you how I can do it for you? And they'll usually flip really quickly and go, okay, well, I guess it makes sense to meet. Once they meet you and you have a deeper conversation and they realize you're really not full of it and you're really going to do all those things to help them, they will, and I have a game that I play. I've never asked anyone to list a property, ever. And that's my test is if I've provided enough value, they'll pull that out of the folder. And I'm really strategic. It's always in the left-hand side of the folder that gets slid in front of the decision maker. And without fail, they at least pull it out of the folder and look at it. But I've had people actually fill out their own list, like start signing it before I even got to that part of the presentation. And that tells me that that the pressure was a good thing because they're relieved. And there's tons and tons and tons of stories I have to back it up. But just find any way you possibly can to get in front of them, whether that's a market valuation or an assessment of the personal property, and then be prepared. Go with paperwork. So the typical transaction for me was an inbound phone call, a 10 to 15-minute conversation, a meeting on the next Monday or Friday, depending on what day they called me, because we looked at homes on Monday and Friday. And then usually no more. I think the longest it ever took me to get a house ready, I had to tear carpets out, do some repairs, and have the home staged. And then I had to pay to put carpet back in one room because there was subfloor, not hardwood. And that took me about, I think, 9 days to get all that done and get the home to where I wanted it. And that was the longest it ever took me to get a probate home on MLS. Typically, it was more like it was a couple of days or no more than one weekend. Like we could set up the estate sale, get it knocked out on the weekend and have it on the market. We listed all our properties on Thursday nights. So that's a typical, you can do a one-stop listing. My goal was always one-stop listing, less than an hour, and try to get it on MLS as quick as possible. But you've got to be able to identify when they're standing in their own way. And I'll say this, the only reason I know to back off is if they're just really emotionally raw, then back off and give them some space. Otherwise, push forward because they need that leadership from you. And someone else gave them that, and they responded to it by signing a listing agreement with someone who had strong leadership. So, and like I said earlier in this conversation, if you listen good, if you ask good questions and listen, they'll tell you exactly what service they need. They'll kind of draw you the map. You just need to follow it.
And I was going to say, too, please listen to the role play calls. Virtually every scenario we've gone over in there at least once, and you can put your little mouse on the on the tab, and you'll see the different situations, and you'll get good examples how to handle them all. A lot of it comes from experience. You get more confident as it goes on, and please keep coming back and share your wins with us. And if we weren't able to completely answer the call back next week, and we'll talk about it again. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Hey, we tried to keep it an hour. We came closer than yesterday. That's the good news. I did want to report, I forgot to mention that Aileen Smolenoff was our winner of the week last week, and we will share next Thursday who won our winner of the week for this call. I just want to close this, guys, like I always do. Thank you so much for taking an hour and 15 minutes to be here. We appreciate so much everybody who showed up, especially the ones who participated. I always like to end these calls by challenging you. You heard so many good thoughts, good ideas today. Take one idea that you heard on this call, go out and put it into practice, and come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Thank you so much, guys. Make it a great week. We will talk to you same time next Thursday. Take care.